Members will call the meeting of the Capital Investment Committee to order. And members and guests, especially those that are waiting to get the handouts, please keep it orderly as we distribute the handouts. So we already had to remove Mr. Janicet from that line for disorderly conduct. So make sure that we keep it orderly, please, and quiet as we're moving forward here. Representative Fitzsimmons, would you approve, have you looked at the minutes of March 27, 2014?
I have, Mr. Chair. And I would move the approval of the minutes from March 27, 2014.
Any additions or corrections, members? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carried. Chair Hausman, would you like to move your DE amendment A14-1037? Members, you have all this information in your folders.
Mr. Chair, I will first move House File 2490 to get that is the governor's bill, which we're using as the vehicle.
Okay, Chair Hausman, then would you like to move the DE A14-1037 as well?
And I will move that to get the bill before us as we're going to be discussing it.
Okay, members, Chair Hausman has moved H4-2490 along with the A14-1037 amendment. Any questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Carried. Chair Hausman, please present the bill.
And Mr.
And members, and yes, remember, please, we need to even keep it down so that we can hear this. Thank you. Chair Hausman.
And Mr. Chair, if you would like, I could watch and see when it looks like most have the copy before them, unless you'd like me to begin right now.
When the feeding frenzy lessens, Chair Hausman, that's correct. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, with your instructions, you sound like a former teacher. How many years were you in the classroom?
Representative Carlson, one successful, 33 other ones besides that, so 34 total.
My wife says when I'm giving instructions, I'm using my teacher voice, so
Yes.
that's what I was picking up on, yeah.
Thank you, Representative Carlson. Chair Hausman?
Mr. Chair, just so that everyone is very clear, we're going to have another bill later. If they're looking at one spreadsheet and don't see themselves, there are in fact two bills. There is one general obligation bonding, which meets the target of $850, and then there is a cash bill, which meets the target of $125. So you have to look for numbers on both spreadsheets, and so that there's no confusion about that. Before I begin anything, Mr. Chair, I must say thank you to staff. We worked them so hard, and particularly in a session like this where we didn't ramp up slowly, we jumped right in. And I can tell you, because I was hoping for a miracle that suddenly I could write a bigger bill, I waited till the very last minute to do this horrible thing of cutting. And so they worked all weekend. And Ms. Nash was here with me until, I think, 10 Friday night. And Ms. Dyson and our fiscal analyst and caucus members were here through the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, as we worked to bring those numbers down. And, Mr. Chair, I introduced another bill, House File 3250, which at the time I actually thought was bare bones. We barely, all of those areas where you wish you could do more, that includes some of the transportation areas. I thought at the time it was bare bones. Transportation in that bill was $185 million. There is significantly less in this bill. Some of that was triggered by some of the targets that the finance committees were assigned. But I would say there's one word to describe this bill, I'll say more positive things later, but I think the one defining word is inadequate. There are many areas in this bill that don't reach the level that we need to. But it's a work in progress. It's building a bill that needs to get 81 votes on the floor from a social media tweet I already saw this morning. Apparently that's going to be an uphill battle. It's designed to meet the targets that were assigned by the Ways and Means Committee, as I outlined. But it has a long way to go and not much time. And so obviously the conversation has to be vigorous. But I think it's important for us, before we get to the details, to acknowledge these bills are not about us. They're not about our caucus. They're not even about our leaders. They are about the thousands of Minnesotans that we've talked to the last few years. We traveled the state. Many have come to our offices. They have emailed. I think in the last few days, the emails were coming in sometimes every 30 seconds or every minute. So people were working very, very hard. And it is about those thousands of Minnesotans who told their story this year. And we owe them a vigorous debate, and we owe them continued work to hear their needs, let them tell the story about the importance of their projects to the economic health of their region. And so I'm not giving up on that, but hopefully that vigorous debate will be positive and that we won't start on a attack mode. And to clarify the first bit of misunderstanding, everyone is seeing this bill for the first time today. That's true of both Democrats and Republicans. They have not seen this spreadsheet or any of this language until they came in and looked in their folders. So both Democrats and Republicans are seeing it for the first time at the same time. And I also think it's helpful to set the context. This is not my work, but the work of a commentary in the newspaper pointing out that 16 years ago, Governor Arne Carlson signed a $1 billion bonding bill. If the inflation factor were added to that, we would be writing a bill today just under $1.5 billion. But that billion is still sort of our psychological barrier. And I think it's helpful for us to take a look at whether that is in fact the kind of concern that we should have. And so in your packets, you have information from Moody's, Standard & Poor's, and Fitch. And I'd like to just reference a few comments they make, because we're going to be talking about this, I think, for the next few weeks, and it's just important to know, what do the rating agencies really care about? And this is from Moody's. Our rating reflects the state's strong financial management that has resulted in improved revenue performance, replenishment of budget reserves, and budget balancing solutions that are largely recurring. They talk about our sound management tools, our forecasting process, our manageable debt load, the executive's unallotment authority. They say the revenue trends are positive, supported by the state's diverse and stable economy, which is expected to outperform the nation over the long term. And Moody's expects that the state will continue to exhibit sound financial practices that will lead to further improvement in the state's overall balance sheet. But they talk about a couple of credit challenges, and among them are a history of gridlock in the state and a trend of political intractability resulting in late budgets and government shutdowns. That's the caution. So many good things to say about it. This is Standard & Poor's. A key credit strength is Minnesota's deep and diverse economy, with the Minneapolis-St. Paul metropolitan statistical area the center of the upper Midwest economy, anchoring regional economic hubs. And they cite improved financial results, restoration of reserves, and repayment of deferrals, moderate debt levels. And finally, Fitch, the key rating drivers. Solid economic profile. Minnesota's economy is balanced, and wealth indicators are positive. There is a below-average liability burden. The state's debt levels are on the lower end of the moderate range, with rapid amortization of GO debt. The burden of debt and unfunded pension liabilities is below average for states rated by Fitch. And then they cite the improved financial position. The state relied on non-recurring budget balancing measures over the course of the recession, but positive budget variances have allowed for the replenishment of reserves to full policy funding levels and payment of deferred school aid. Much good news there. And if you have listened, and I read more of the detail, they don't discuss the size of our bonding bills, but they certainly care how we're balancing our budget and are we putting money in the reserve. So I think some would argue we should have had a little more courage in that general obligation bond target and be prepared to put more of the cash in the reserve account. But that is a context that I feel I want to set before we go through the spreadsheet sheet. So I can tell you, I use the term inadequate, and we start right with higher education, where yet again, asset preservation, we know it's too low. We need a bigger bill. We should focus on the positive, however. And that is, under University of Minnesota, what we're doing in the area of research laboratory improvements, that's where we're doing the research on bees. We know the importance that has. I've heard from people all over the state who were hoping we would fund that. And that's also where we do the research on aquatic invasive species. We've gone back to last year's number on the Wellness Center. We hope that that's not the last word on that, but we'll continue to work on that. The UMD project, we appreciate it very much and appreciate including that. I do want to talk just a little bit about the Museum of Natural History and the Planetarium. Because here's where I think I challenge our vision. In 1872, there were visionaries, and they established a natural history museum. They knew this was important, and the legislators established it, and they gave the responsibility to the university. And we've sort of washed our hands of it since then. And since about 2004, they have been bringing the issue before us. It's one of the things I can't quite give up on, because I think I have to ask, are we still visionaries as those legislators were in 1872? Paul Douglas and Mark Seeley are two supporters of this project. And Paul Douglas has a weather column, and on that he has posted the following: Minnesota deserves a state-of-the-art planetarium and natural history museum. I'm a big believer in science education and science literacy. Our kids and grandkids will need to be well-versed in science to succeed and maximize their potential in a very tech-savvy world. We lead the nation in the agricultural science, the arts, medical device technology, and innovation, but the Twin Cities Metro has yet to build a planetarium, and the Bell Museum of Natural History needs an overhaul and upgrade to remain competitive. And I would say, to serve more children. Right now, their location manages 2 school groups, and in a new location, they would hope to serve 6 school groups. And so, he says, a new planetarium and natural history museum would be a boon not only to the University of Minnesota, but the Twin Cities and the entire state, serving kids and adults interested in science, making us even more competitive on the national and world stage. And then he points out that Mark Seeley is also part of this ongoing campaign to turn this vision into a reality. And Dr. Seeley says, I, like you, give a strong priority to do all I can to support science literacy among Minnesotans, and also to support all efforts to increase appreciation and awareness of our state's natural history. The new Bell Museum and Planetarium will provide far more opportunities to educate and engage students and citizens about science and about our natural history. The planetarium will help us understand the university we live. And then Paul Douglas ends, tell your local legislator that our kids deserve a world-class planetarium and natural history museum. And that is why I cannot give up on this project. Under Minnesota State Colleges and Universities, MnSCU has been subject over the years to many line-item vetoes. They have brought some of these projects forward. I'm holding up this sheet just to show this is their request, and all of those green marks. These are the previous submittals, the numbers of times that these projects have been brought to us, and many, if not most, were submitted in 2008, 2010, 2012. And so when someone asks me, well, why do we have to fund so many of the Minskute projects, that's why. That is our future. Our higher ed system, I do believe, is, one, it trains the workforce of the future, but it is also where the research happens that forms the next Fortune 500 company. It is all about economic development. It is all about the contributions that they make. And so it is always the most significant part of the bonding bill. Under education, I wanted to say just a word about the library construction grants. You see, we have renamed them. That used to be just accessibility, and that language didn't work. Perham and Jackson are two libraries that we heard about and took a look at that we think should be assisted by something like this. And so we have renamed them library construction grants, and we have added the language that the people in the Perham community wanted, but we'll take a closer look at that. Representative Gunther and I think, would both agree we wish this could be far more than $3 million, and we'll have to keep working on that. Under DNR, Representative Albright made an incredible speech as the school trust lands people were here about the importance of doing that project. We should, if we were doing it over 5 years, we should be doing $20 million a year. We just squeezed in $2 million in this bill. But that means if we really reach that level of investment that legislators decided to do, that in the next 4 years we would have to do closer to $25 million. So this is getting it on the board and starting that process. I'll say a little more about trails when I go over the language. The Central Minnesota Regional Park, some of you, if you're from that part of the state, you know we've looked at that Daler property for some time. We think it's a really nice addition to the park system there, and we're hoping we can finally do that this year. And then we had a wonderful visit in Albert Lea for the Fountain Lake restoration. They described themselves as the gateway to Minnesota. It's where the tourists are going to come and see the beauty of our lakes. And so we're happy to partner in that. There is strong support. I spoke to a room full of people from all over the state about Reinvest in Minnesota and the wetland restoration. All of those watershed people, everyone who understands the importance of our water, wetlands, we're here in force. I'm sure you've heard from some of them, and they tell me the applications are ready for this $20 million, and we are. Minnesota Zoo, I am still trying to rebuild this bill. I hope we can find a way to get $10 million more here. This is closer to last year's. I think we reverted in some cases to last year's number, but my word inadequate certainly applies to that. Under amateur sports, you see 3 projects. The Marshall Project has been here for a couple of years. Here's where you will find one of their projects in the cash bill, the air quality issues, because we don't think we know the solutions yet. We don't know about the bondability. Maybe a solution is less expensive than replacing an entire HVAC system, and so we have some money in the cash bill for that. Under military affairs, we did in the larger bill, I did Brooklyn Park and Owatonna. The Brooklyn Park one is ranked as their higher one, so unfortunately we lost one of those in this bill. We'll talk a little more about language and transportation, but all I'll say about transportation is we needed a bigger bill. One of the reasons that this area is scaled back is once Representative Hornstein was given the $50 million target as a standalone bill, we did scale back a good bit of this because of what he was including there. As you see some of the parks listed, I can tell you Springbrook Nature Center is one of those. It's been here forever. I have the feeling they've been coming back for 10 years. I begin to sound as though I've said all of these things before because these projects have been here in 2000, 2004, 2007, 2010, and I sound like a broken record. Under Department of Human Services, the State Security Hospital. We sometimes look at a bonding bill and think we only look, is our project in here? Or we only vote for it because our project is here. But in this case, I'm certainly aware of Representative Clark Johnson's strong approach. I certainly am aware of the strong support in that community and the needs in that department. But one of the people I promised this line to is Representative Mindy Greiling, former Representative Mindy Greiling, who lives in Roseville, but she cares very much about this. This is of statewide significance, and we all have an obligation to say how are patients here housed and how are workers, what are the working conditions for those who work there. And so that has impact far beyond. It's our only state security hospital. When we get to the language, I'll go over on Veterans Affairs. In the previous bill, I had funded all of their items, and yesterday we had something brought to our attention that I'll maybe reference briefly. There has apparently been remember, Mr. Chair, in the bill you authored last year that there was $18 million for the Minneapolis Veterans Home. We thought that match of 35.2 would be forthcoming. We waited in August and September and October and January, and it didn't come. And now it says they've received an email confirmation that the federal VA has awarded a $5 million grant, not 35, but 5. And this is what I don't understand. The official notification from the federal VA will arrive through a conditional approval letter around August of this year. So that's a little confusing to me, and I don't know what the implications are. But yesterday they did work out some language with the governor's office on using some of that, and I'll be presenting that amendment tomorrow, and we'll talk a little more. About that. I brought something. Under the Department of Corrections, it was the first time we had a haiku. You all received, remember the fence? And here is the haiku that the staff there presented to us for the Shakopee perimeter fence. Only female joint, no secure perimeter, need fence, not a hedge. That was the haiku. I think that was a first, very creative, and so we hope perhaps this is the year. It has been somewhat controversial in that community, but I think there is strong support now for it. We've at this moment scaled back the St. Cloud project a little bit. We are hoping that we can reverse that. Under Employment and Economic Development, here too, I had far more in that earlier bill. And again, I always watch what happens in the targets of other committees, and Representative Mahoney had a target of, I think, $37 million, and that caused me to take out $39 million, and it caused me to scale back this part of the bill a bit because of what was in his bill. Under PFA, we always know that the Wastewater Infrastructure Fund is sought by so many. Many communities go through that fund. And, of course, in this historic moment, in the two bills, we fund $100 million for housing, for those who are homeless or who cannot afford housing. It is a growing number in Minnesota, and half of those people who are homeless are under age 20. You've heard me talk about the University of Minnesota research that says there's an impact on the achievement gap. When they studied children who were homeless or highly mobile, by the time they reach 5th grade, they achieve at the level of a 2nd grader who is in stable housing. That's the contribution of homelessness on the achievement gap. Last year, when we had this bill before us, I distributed to you commentary from superintendents all around the state who understand that impact. Utah looked at it from another perspective. They discovered that the costs of homelessness were greater to them than if they just housed everyone. And so they set about ending homelessness, and in 8 years they cut homelessness 78% and intend to continue that. So we are starting with a major issue. I cannot tell you how grateful I am to that community, the housing advocacy community, the faith community, so many who have joined in. And for us, again, you'll see this in both bills. You will see the GO bonding in this bill and the $80 million appropriation bond in the cash bill, because that is it's a different kind of vehicle, and we just allocate the cash to pay the debt service on that. In Minnesota Historical Society, you'll also see one of the items in the cash bill. We thought that some of those local grants, they might have a little more flexibility. For people in the audience who don't know it, cash has no rules, and general obligation bonds have a lot of rules. And so when you need a little more flexibility, that's what you try to do. Under grants to political subdivisions, we are sort of all over the state. In Chatfield, in Grand Rapids, in Mankato, in Minneapolis, in Rice Lake, in Rochester, in St. Cloud, in Virginia. I will tell you that in several of these projects, I hope that we can restore all of this to full funding. I don't know how that's going to happen, but we're just going to keep working on that. I should say just a word about the Virginia utilities reroute. Many years ago, there was an agreement with the state of Minnesota and the mining companies that when they were ready to move to a new area for mining, that we would move the road. And so suddenly that time is upon us. And MnDOT has been working on this for a long time to see what is there is a timeline, so we can't put this off forever. And so they're working on the highway, but at the same time, the utilities that connect this region have to be moved. And that has an urgency to it. And so that's a rather unusual project, but we started down that road really many years ago in an agreement with the mining companies. When you put a bill like this together, and it's a small bill, and you're told to add some projects, and you have to be fair to all, it does feel a little like you're sort of being asked to perform a miracle, but I want to just talk through a little bit of the language. The flood hazard mitigation grants on page 12, we're targeting right now, again because it's a smaller number, Montevideo and Moorhead. I'm certain that the Senate will encourage us to be a little more aggressive there. We have $5 million for dam renovation and repair, and we specifically cite the Champlain Mill Pond Dam as one that we're hoping is finished. And then, Mr. Chair, I talked about all those emails that are coming in. Just before midnight last night, this one, very simple statement from Zembroda. Please support the bonding request for the Goodhue Pioneer Trail. A trail provides opportunities to stimulate and enliven the bodies and spirits of users, and also results in economic development of the communities through which it passes. We hear this over and over and over. Local communities get it. There was a time when people were suspicious of trails, and now they are embraced, and all of the work happens on the local level. And I know you have heard from many of them. But just for the record, I'm going to, so that if people don't have this language, it's clear. Blazing Star Trail, Casey Jones Trail in Pipestone County, Cuyuna Lakes Trail, the Gateway Trail, Yichigami Trail, Glacial Lakes Trail through New London and into Sibley State Park, Goodhue Pioneer Trail, Heartland Trail, the Loose Line Trail. You remember that the winery we stopped at, and the owners of the winery chose their location because of that trail, and they intend at their own expense to build a connection to the trail, and they believe it's going to be part of how they build their local economy and business. Milltowns Trail, Minnesota River Trail between Mankato and St. Peter. Minnesota Valley Trail from the Bloomington Ferry Bridge to the Minnesota Valley Wildlife Refuge. I'm told that when that is finished, it is likely to be the highest numbers, the most used. It's already, even without a good link, a commuter route. People actually do that in Minnesota. They commute on their bikes year-round. And then, of course, the Shooting Star Trail from Rose Creek to Austin. I think that's... hope I got them all. And then we have some flexibility language so that if there's money left over, it can be floated. I already mentioned the Central Minnesota Regional Park, the Daler property. On page 17, PCA project, Becker County Waste Transfer Facility, they have also come on for a number of years and they, I believe, are at the top of that list. We don't have enough local road and bridge money. That would be, if I had another $100 million, I know what I would do with it. I should point out, though, that I think since the collapse of the 35W bridge, we have sort of focused on the very large bridge projects that Minneapolis has, and in this bill we do acknowledge that the Franklin Avenue Bridge is next up. I think it might be the last one. I'm not sure. And then again, there is we don't have enough money in the local road improvement fund, but I do acknowledge that Linda Slocum has brought the 77th Street underpass project many years. If any of you have ever been, you're coming down a street and you get into the right turn lane, there's actually a right turn lane with an arrow, but if you are in that lane and turn, there is no road. So the right turn lane is there, but it's a major parallel corridor to 494, very congested, and we don't know how the planning happened for this, but we've got to do something about it. And there's a very dangerous situation in Anoka County. This was in our bill last year for U.S. Highway 10 and County State Aid Highway. And then I'm sure you've all heard about the Arden Hills property where there's a hope for, after cleanup, some development, and there are some infrastructure needs there. There is one grant under the Greater Minnesota Transit, and that's St. Cloud. Oh, no, two, I'm sorry, and Wilmer. Bus storage garage in Wilmer and St. Cloud. There were two others in our bill last year, and MnDOT tells us they're not ready, so we backed off of those. We have a couple of trunk highway projects in here. I think they're in Representative Hornstein's bill, too, but we just didn't want to overlook them. And then on page 29, we have $10 million for early childhood learning facilities, and we are targeting $5 million of that to the YWCA in Minneapolis. I can't remember if we heard it here or if that was in another committee, but this is, because it is in downtown Minneapolis, they serve children from all over the region, from all parts of the 7-county metro area, and so it's a unique circumstance. At the end, you see lots of cancellations, little bits of money that sort of are on the books and never got canceled on pages 44, 45. You can see the years when some of them were initially enacted. And then we're having a little confusion. We thought there were 3 years of allocation to the Minnesota Valley Regional Rail that had not been spent. They believe they've spent 2 of them, and so we're a little confused about this. But they weren't able to spend it in part because we didn't specifically say bridges. So if they're doing this, this is, by the way, not a private but a public, maybe our only public railroad, I'm not sure. There are lots of commodities that are moved along there, and so the additional language allows them to spend the money that we previously allocated for the bridge. We extend there's $2 million additional that was allocated to Orchestra Hall that was specifically for PV Plaza. Because of a lawsuit that delayed this, they have not yet spent this, and so it's not counted as new funding, but we extend that. Rather than it automatically canceling, they have a little more time to work on that. And then if you look at the language, this is what we'll revisit tomorrow when we look at the amendment that MDVA has asked us to offer, which we'll be doing tomorrow night. Before we heard about this $5 million, we had thought, because it was so unclear to us whether that federal money was going to be forthcoming in the next 4 years, that if we gave them flexibility with that $18 million, rather than just have it sit there, that they had a choice within their department. It would totally be their choice. And so you might want to take a look at the language on 58 to see how you feel about that, and we'll revisit that tomorrow evening when we take a look at their amendment. And there's one other language issue. This is actually for the $80 million in the cash bill that we're still working on. The Community Land Trust groups and the Minnesota Housing Finance Agency are still continuing to talk through language that the department sought, but that particularly in greater Minnesota, people had some concern about. It looked as though the department was narrowing it, and there were people who felt they wouldn't be eligible. And so I think we're still in discussion about that. The Minnesota Housing Finance Agency worries that our language does the opposite, and that is broaden it. So that's still an ongoing conversation. And Mr. Chair, would you like me to, if that finishes this bill, we set this aside and I'll move the other?
Yes, Chair Hausman, that'd be fine. If you want to move House File 1068, I think we're talking, yes.
And then I would further move the amendment to that.
And Amendment Day 14, 1038, members. So Chair Hausman has moved House File 1068 and Amendment A14, 1038 to get the bill in the proper form that she would like. All those in favor of that motion, please state aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Chair Hausman, do you want to present the bill now, please?
And this is relatively brief, and here I can tell you, I said this bill was inadequate. When you see under administration, we're hanging on to a little bit of money to continue the capital restoration. It's sort of our way of saying we know this is still something we're all committed to, but we don't quite see the path it's going to take yet this legislative session. So strong commitment to it, but we're sort of just moving an amount into conference committee. Under DNR, you will note there are outdoor classrooms. I previously talked about the Natural History Museum, and they have long hoped for a partnership with DNR because this other location would give them room outside that they don't currently have at that location for outdoor classrooms. And so they are partnering with the DNR to plant Minnesota biomes, the two kinds of forest and the prairie. I just believe that corner is going to be, if you vote for this is going to be one of those legacy projects with the Planetarium and Natural History Museum and outdoor classrooms where children across the state, I predict, will come in large number to be educated in the context of the University of Minnesota. And so this is one small piece of that. Under Department of Transportation, Again, most of these are such really very small amounts. Passenger and freight rail, we have to have some conversation. It's all this does is get it into conference committee for continued discussion. The storm tunnels, we've brought that year after year after year. I talked to MnDOT again this week, and they said, well, something's going on down there, and how long can infrastructure underground deteriorate before something major happens? And so we're trying again on that. Representative Hornstein put some money in his bill for some of the arterial bus rapid transit. This number is obviously not enough for some of the projects we want to move forward. And then this is also, we have Como Park access. 4 million people every year come to Como Park. A lot of them are children, and the safety issues there are getting rather significant, and so we're trying to help with getting some better pedestrian access, etc. And then there is something new. There are, as Mr. Chair knows well, four or five communities around the state who have been so eager for federal funding for a veterans home. And they were waiting for, because Minneapolis was first, for that to move out of the way so others could get in line, and that seems so far off. And those communities, I think, they don't give up. But what we're trying on page 10 of the cash bill is a small amount of money. It has to be cash because it's planning, and you can't do geo bonding for that. Minnesota Housing Finance Agency has people who have the skills to do this, to go into a community and do a needs assessment specifically for veterans in the community. And these grants could be awarded to any governmental or non-governmental organization. A study or a survey of the need for scattered site housing for veterans and their families who are homeless or in danger of homelessness, or for housing that addresses the health care needs of disabled or aging veterans. So it's a stopgap while some of those communities they haven't given up, and we haven't given up, but it's just a little unclear when federal money for some of these homes will be forthcoming. Mr. Chair, that's, I think, a quick overview.
So, members, do you have any questions, Chair Hausman, on either bill? Seeing none. There's a few announcements that I want to go over, members and public. First, members, make sure that you keep your DE amendments and the spreadsheets in your folders. We're ongoing here. So the DE amendments from both bills and your spreadsheets from both bills. The DE amendments and spreadsheets will get posted in the committee on the committee's website shortly after this meeting adjourns for the public to see. Members, amendments are due by 10 a.m. tomorrow morning for markup of both bills. So I'll say that one more time. Amendments are due by 10 a.m. tomorrow. That brings us to the next meeting. The next meeting that we're going to have of capital investment is tomorrow at 3 p.m. Or 15 minutes after the Ways and Means adjourns, whichever is earlier, in room 5, after Representative Carlson has completed with his work. And for the public, we encourage you to stay tuned in. There will be email notifications sent out, so make sure you check your emails. Members, anything else? This meeting stands adjourned.